ये गोट की चूड़ियों का डिमांड बहुत अच्छा है और ये करीब जो है ना 100 ईयर्स से ही मार्केट है ये टोटल ये। और जैसा आप ड्रेसेस लिखेंगे वही हिसाब से जो है ना बैंगल्स है ना मैचिंग कलर के डिज़ाइन ड्रेस का देख के बना के हम लोग देते हैं सेट करके, जैसे मैचिंग सेट पर है पूरे ऑल ओवर वर्ल्ड के अंदर जो है ना मैन्युफैक्चर इसका यही है। तो कोई भी बाहर का टूरिज़्म आएगा, कोई घूमने के लिए आएंगे तो ज़्यादातर ये दिमाग में रख के आता है कि अपन हैदराबाद को जा रहे थे, यहाँ पर बैंगल्स लेना है, हैदराबादी बैंगल स्पेशल बोल के।
Shimmering sparkle, tinkling sounds and magnificent colors all go into making the Hyderabadi bangles that are a key component of the city's rich cultural legacy.
Namaskar. It's been a month now since the lockdown, and while the number of coronavirus cases rises, the rate of that increase has more or less become linear instead of that expected exponential rise that people have, which has happened in other countries. So this is a sign that the lockdown has severely restricted the rate of infections and has saved many lives as a result. We'll put all this into context with eminent doctors in our discussion, and we'll also look at the road ahead. You're watching Newsnight. Let's begin with the headlines. On completion of 1 month of the lockdown, the government says the country is able to cut the transmission, minimize the spread, and achieve the recovery rate of 19.89%, and says that testing has improved by 33% in the last 30 days. In good news, the number of districts in the country without any fresh COVID-19 cases in the last 28 days goes up to 12 from 4. 78 districts have not reported a new case in the last 14 days. The Ministry of Home Affairs says that the enforcement of lockdown has been satisfactory in the country, and the economic activity has also picked up pace, especially in rural areas. Some additional services related to senior citizens and other categories are exempted from restrictions. The total active COVID cases in India stands at 16,689, with 686 deaths reported so far across the country. Over 4,300 people have been discharged after being cured. The BJP has hit out at the Congress, saying that it has indulged in negative politics over COVID-19, criticizing Sonia Gandhi's statement. Senior BJP leader and Union Minister Prakash Javadekar says that the Congress is spreading hatred in society at this time of crisis. Party leader Shahnawaz Hussain also says that if the Congress cannot cooperate during the crisis, it should at least not give it a communal color. And launching an Indian initiative to fight COVID-19 by enhancing natural defense, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, has decided to develop and repurpose an approved immunomodulator to increase innate immunity in the body and limit the spread of coronavirus, and also hasten the recovery of COVID-19 patients. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds telephonic conversation with the Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Hsien Loong, and the two leaders exchange views on COVID-19 pandemic. The Prime Minister thanks Singapore Premier for the support and care being given to Indian citizens in Singapore. The US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo speaks to the External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar, discusses bilateral and international cooperation to contain and mitigate COVID-19. Government is making all efforts that the well-being of stranded Indian citizens in the Gulf countries is being taken care of. Sources say that Indian missions are in touch with the host governments, and there is an ongoing discussion on the welfare of Indian workers. OIC's allegations has been termed as deeply regrettable and factually incorrect. Moving on to our next story. Next headline, please. And now let's move on to our top story. In fact, we will begin with understanding what has happened in 1 month of the lockdown. Behind me, we'll be providing you with certain inputs that will help us understand what has happened in these 1 month of the lockdown. India has had quite a lot of success in this 1 month, as we can see slowly and surely. These graphics will show up. Success in tackling the spread of COVID-19, 1 month of the lockdown. What is happening is that we are seeing a continuous decline in the infection rate. Most countries, see an exponential rise. India is rising by about 900, and 900 to 1,000, it's remaining stable. The success in minimizing the risks of coronavirus infection has taken place with all the efforts of the lockdown. The rate of infection, as we said, has remained steady. It's not exponential. That is key. Testing has increased by about 24%. So we are testing many more people, and hence we are getting more numbers also. But the infections per number of tests has remained stable. That is extremely important. In fact, corona positive patients are only about 4.5% of all the tests. So we have conducted a huge number of tests, and we've only got 4.5% of them actually coming out to be positive, or even less actually. Well, let's move on to our next graphic, which is saying that testing percentage of COVID-19 has increased by 24% after the lockdown that we have seen. In fact, the infection rate had increased only by 16% after the lockdown. This is information that was given out today from about 1,500 people that were being tested per day on the 24th of March. We are now testing about 35,000 people a day, and so far we have tested over 5 lakh people. So that is the rate at which we are testing in our country. The total number of cases was only 606, in fact, on the 25th of March. And now we know that there are about 1,700 cases. And so you can see the way it has risen. After about 400 cases in other countries, we have seen an exponential rise. We've seen that across the world. But in India, after 400 cases, we've seen only a steady rise. So we know that India is prepared for the numbers to increase, because we have a total of 1,94,000 beds, about that amount for beds which are in isolation, over 1,24,000 beds, and a total of 26,644 ICU beds in the country. A total of 12,371 ventilators are also available. So all this information helps us to understand India's preparedness. We've always been ahead of the curve, in a sense, anticipating everything that COVID could produce, the difficulties that COVID could cause us, and we have been ready and preparing for them. Well, the chairman of the Empowered Group 2 on COVID, C.K. Mishra, who's the Environment Secretary, has said that the government has been able to flatten the spread of COVID-19 in the last 30 days during the lockdown, and is prepared for the future in case the virus spreads further. Pretty much what we were talking about.
We've been able to cut transmission, minimize spread, and increase the doubling days. Second, we have been able to consistently ramp up our testing. And third, we have been able to utilize this time gainfully for preparing ourselves for the future if the virus spreads further. And anyway, whatever is required to be done, we will need to do.
Now, the director of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, Dr. Randeep Guleria, on behalf of the medical community, thanked the Prime Minister and the Government of India for the ordinance which amends the Epidemic Diseases Act, and he says that it will go a long way in boosting the morale of the frontline corona warriors. He also said that COVID-19 patients face a lot of challenges, and there's a stigma which is attached to them which is not at all justified. He said that, in fact, recovered patients are symbols of victory, and stigmatizing them is entirely wrong.
आज जब हम अपने कोविड वॉरियर्स या कोरोना वॉरियर्स को अपलॉड कर रहे हैं, उनको धन्यवाद कर रहे हैं, हमें उसी तरीके से जो हमारे पेशेंट्स हैं, जो सारी इस पैंडेमिक का एपी सेंटर हैं, उनका भी ध्यान रखना चाहिए, उनको स्टिग्मेटाइज नहीं करना चाहिए। अगर हम उनको स्टिग्मेटाइज करेंगे तो दो चीज़ें होंगी, एक तो वो बाहर नहीं आएंगे, टेस्ट नहीं होंगे, बीमारी जो है ज़्यादा फैलेगी और उनकी भी कंडीशन ज़्यादा ख़राब होगी और वो हॉस्पिटल लेट आएंगे, जिससे मोर्टेलिटी भी बढ़ेगी।
So this is going to bring us to our point of discussion for tonight, and this is bringing us into focus. And in focus is this. It should be on your screens. In focus is 1 month of the lockdown, the road less traveled. I beg your pardon, the road traveled, not the road less traveled. 1 month of lockdown, the road traveled, the road traveled. And we have two eminent doctors joining us on Skype. Dr. Randeep Guleria is the director of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and Dr. Naresh Trehan, the chairman of Medanta Medicity from Gurgaon, is joining us. We can see Dr. Randeep Guleria on the screen. Dr. Guleria, we heard you also at the press conference, and you know, we are the question that people will be thinking about is that, okay, we flattened the curve. We are still having now about 1,000 cases per day. What is the future like? I mean, are we past the worst? You know, these are the kind of questions that people will have in mind.
So I think the last 1 month has actually been quite useful and fruitful. As you rightly said, to some extent, we have been able to flatten the curve, and we've done relatively well as compared to a lot of the countries in the Western world. The number of cases has not gone up significantly. The doubling time has actually become more rather than becoming less. At the same time, we have utilized this 1 month to ramp up our testing, and we are now doing a large number of tests. So we've got more than 300 labs, and from a baseline of where we were doing maybe around 1,000 to 2,000 tests per day, we are doing now close to 40,000 tests per day, and this is increasing every day. There's also been a huge plan of improving our infrastructure in terms of oxygen, in terms of ventilator beds, in terms of COVID hospitals, ICU beds. So this 1 month has been useful. Coming to the future, that's something that's going to be a big challenge because the curve is flattened, but still we need to be vigilant because the pandemic is not over.
Okay.
And have to look at different strategies because we will have to lift the lockdown at some point in time, and there will be movement of laborers, movement of people from one place to the other. So how do we do that in terms of still keeping the curve flattened and getting back to normal is going to be the big challenge, and we need to develop strategies for that, as we have done in the last 1 month to keep the cases under control.
Right, and Dr. Guleria, so the question that also comes to mind is that you know, you did say that we're going to have a number of people who will be coming into the system, the economic activity will start. There is the feeling that you know, only a small percentage of people need critical care, and we have ramped up that for critical care. But a lot of the people actually are already testing asymptomatic in a sense, which can indicate perhaps that, you know, we have some sort of higher immunity level already, or am I reading too much? You know, people need to understand what is the level of immunity that our society already has to develop a herd immunity, which some analysts, maybe you as a specialist will know, is really the ultimate way of dealing with this virus.
So there are two different things. One is that, yes, if you look at the data, it suggests that in terms of the number of serious cases, India seems to be doing better than what the West is doing. And whether it's related to some part of our immunity, some people have argued it's related to the fact that we are a younger population. Our average age is much less as compared to what it is in the Western world. There's a theory that it could be related to BCG vaccination, which all of us get at birth, which is not being done in the Western world. Or it could be related to other factors, which could be related to recurrent infections and other things. But it is true that we are seeing a large number of individuals who are asymptomatic or who have mild illness. Now, it has two implications. One implication is that therefore the number of patients who will require ICU beds or admission is less. And in most hospitals, including our hospital, majority of our patients, I would say even more than 2/3 of our patients, are actually stable and requiring only quarantine rather than any aggressive treatment. But at the same time, it means that we need to be more vigilant because these patients or these individuals who are asymptomatic are still infectious and they can still spread the infection. Therefore, lockdown, quarantine, social distancing, hand washing becomes all the more important because we would not be able to say who is having or who's infectious and who's not infectious in the community. And therefore, I think even subsequently for months to come, we will have to have all of these measures in place.
Regarding
Doc-
the
yeah,
question
okay.
of herd immunity, we will have to have a large amount of our population, more than 50% of our population, having had the infection and having developed antibodies or immunity against the infection before we can say that we have a good amount of herd immunity and the
Okay.
chance of infection in the population is less.
Okay.
That will take some time.
So that will take a long time. Dr. Trehan joins us as well. Dr. Trehan, I mean, if we have to develop a herd immunity of 50% of our population, that would be about 700 million people, would be quite a lot to have. I mean, that seems like a large number. Given the state of society and the number of viruses that come into the tropical areas, and India, the general feeling is that the Indians do have a better immunity for quite a few of these viruses. Do you see that India's flattening of the curve also has something to do, apart from the lockdown and all the measures taken by the government, on our inbuilt immunity to some extent?
So if you look at, I think the maximum credit goes to the lockdown.
Okay.
Because of the fact that the intent of the lockdown was to break the chain. And I think we have successfully been able to contain it from that point of view. Now, there are many factors that we are hoping will come to our rescue, including our immunity, including BCG immunization, including temperatures. All these are good things to give you a little bit of comfort, but no reason to celebrate right now. Because if you look at it, the real test will come post lifting of the lockdown. We have to be absolutely very, very careful, even doubly careful after the lifting of the lockdown. And that means that you need cooperation of every individual that walks the earth of India. If we stick to the three principles of hygiene, hand hygiene, masking, and social distancing, that is the main weapon against this deadly virus.
Okay.
So on one hand, you must understand, we can feel comfort in what we are seeing today. The government has done a great job of trying to control everything, get prepared, all that stuff. That's fine. But look at the population of India. We talk about percentages. 5% of India, you know how many people that is?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say, that we must prevent that catastrophe. And the way to prevent the catastrophe is to be very diligent when we lift the lockdown. So it has to be in a phased manner. Hotspots, green, orange area must be green and orange can be relaxed slowly. Hotspots need to be locked up for even longer, as long as it takes, because the stakes are very high. We know on one hand there is human suffering because of joblessness, economic hardships, yes, and we have to balance it with the value of human life. But we can do it if everybody behaves responsibly after the lockdown is lifted. And it will only depend on that.
Yes. Yes, but Dr. Trehan, we have now about 2 lakh beds which are in isolation. So that's in preparation for, more cases that could arise in the event of us lifting the lockdown. And now we have to lift the lockdown, you say, in a phased manner. Are you encouraged by the fact that, 79 districts have not reported a single case for 14 days? And, now the number of districts which have not reported a case for the last 28 days has risen to 12. So, we are definitely looking at a lot of areas which have not seen the virus for almost a month.
Yeah, that's very encouraging. But look at Mumbai.
Okay.
Mumbai by itself is destroying half the cases that are developing out there. So you can't, like I'm saying, that this is a good time to do a proper assessment. It's a good time to make policies of how people will go back to work. Okay. We have to try to do some things which will not be possible, but there are a lot of things that will be possible. Like you say, the guidelines have been issued to industry, how to go back to work. They must adhere to it. Okay. And that's why I'm saying that one thing good that happened. Government of India took the courage and locked down early.
Okay.
It extended the lockdown, knowing very well that it could be more effective if we extended it and our preparation would be better. Now we are staring at the fact that red zones should be extended. The rest should be allowed to go back to normalcy slowly, and take out the kinks as they develop. So now I'm saying is the critical moment. The critical moment is now when you lift, and if it surges, the population of India is so big that 200,000 beds may not be adequate. You know what's happened in countries. You know when Italy got overrun, their resources are much higher. You know France is suffering. You know what New York and some of the other hotspots in the US are suffering. So, keep it in the back of our mind. We say we will be blessed by our immunity, by our temperatures, by our whatever.
Yes.
And then, but don't bank on it.
Okay.
Be prepared for the worst and then celebrate once you have come out of it.
Right. So, Dr. Guleria, so we should be prepared for the worst. Now, you did mention at the press conference also that, we should be looking at the people who've recovered as symbols of victory. And, there's this stigma being attached, which is not at all right. The point is that these symbols of victory now are about 19% of those who have been infected with the cases, and that's likely to increase much more, isn't it? That's a good sign, and that's what we really need to be seeing and celebrating. What do you think? I mean, the rate of recovery, we are seeing a good positive trend. Is that something that we should be very happy about?
Correct. I think we should also understand that we also have a large number of individuals who we know have COVID-19 but are asymptomatic.
Yes.
And if you look at the rate of recovery, the rate of recovery would be more than 90 to 95% of people who get infected by COVID-19, whether they have mild infection or asymptomatic or have even moderate infection. It's only less than 5% of individuals who go on to develop severe infection requiring ICU care and ventilatory support. And this group is predominantly in those who have comorbidities or are in the older age group, more than 60, 70 or 80 years.
Yes.
So therefore, we are a younger population as an average. And therefore, I think we need not be so panicky or so worried about it. What is happening is that because of the stigma that has now got attached to COVID-19, patients are scared, or individuals who have symptoms of COVID-19, that is, they have fever, they have flu-like symptoms, they have cold, cough, pain in the throat, are reluctant to come out and get themselves tested because they fear the society will look at them in a different way, will look at them in a different way, their family members will not be treated properly, and therefore they don't get themselves tested in hotspots. And when they become very, very sick, then only do they reach the hospital, and this may contribute to higher mortality. My own feeling is we need to reach out and really say that these people need to be supported by society, by everyone. The family needs to be supported rather than stigmatized. And they are the ones who will come out and will become all right, have immunity, and actually will contribute to the development of the herd immunity that we've been talking of. So I would actually say we need to really look at them as our good the symbols of hope and symbols of victory.
Right. Also, talking about the method of treatment itself, Dr. Guleria, very few would require ventilators. We have about 12,000 ventilators, but there are also 49,000 that have been, are in the process. But just general oxygen intake has helped a number of patients, recover, who may be even with on the cases of those who have other who are have some sort of deficiencies as far as their immune system is concerned. So positive. These are all positive signs in a sense that we really don't require so many people in critical care. Would that be a right assessment?
Correct. Currently, if you look at our admissions and number of patients who are actually on ventilator, number is small. As a matter of fact, I think the national number is actually less than 100. A large number of individuals actually need oxygen, and they are able to come out with just oxygen and supportive treatment. And this is also, we must keep in mind that there are many people who have mild illness and don't get tested. And later on, when we do a surveillance or we look at the number of people who had COVID-19 but never got tested, the numbers will actually increase and the mortality will even come down further.
Okay.
Because they are not being added into our calculation as of now. Therefore, I would stress that this illness is not something that we need to panic about or worry about. We need to have good infection control measures in place. We need to prevent the spread of the infection by hand washing, social distancing, and everyone needs to look at it in a responsible manner. I personally feel that the battle against COVID 19 is a battle which has to be fought at a community level, not at a hospital level. And if the entire community, if every citizen comes together in this battle and does things responsibly, we will win this fight and we will get rid of COVID 19.
So, Dr. Trehan, we have had some advantages in the first month of the lockdown, and we have to consolidate on that because we've actually kept the virus away from society by measures like the lockdown. But, you know, I mean, if we have to coexist with this virus, it's not going to go away. So that would require us to look at a long-term plan. How many, you know, months or years do you see that actually taking to develop? We can't be continuing to live, you know, a restricted lifestyle for the rest of our lives, is it?
No, not at all, in the sense that there are compulsions that we will have to face. But the point is, one big advantage India got is one, the fact that it has arrived in India a little later in the sequence. So China, US, Italy, Iran, all these actually preceded us. But unfortunately, they also brought it to India. Now, the fact that that late appearance and also the extended lockdown has definitely given us huge advantage in many ways. So, you know, the basic thing is that we know that preparedness is happening, we kept the curve down, but now also the additional factor, and unfortunately I cannot hear Dr. Guleria, so I may be repeating some other things.
Okay.
But the main advantage that we have today is one, that there are hydroxychloroquine came up. India is the biggest producer of that. We have had experience with hydroxychloroquine. It can be used in patients and may be benefiting them. Now only long-term studies will show. Second is the fact that there is remdesivir, which is on the anvil, which is supposed to be the early results on the trials are very encouraging. And we are told that the phase 3 trials in US and China are hopefully being completed within the next 2-3 weeks. Also, the trial in India is starting. So that drug seems to have a definite advantage in treatment of serious complications of COVID-19 infections. So that may change or alter the outcomes in a significant manner. Okay. If that happens, India would have gained a lot. There are other remedies, and let me tell you, our own home remedies of Ayurveda are being actually now in studies. And there is a huge belief that they have a huge immune boosting effect. So all these things are happening simultaneously, and the fact that lockdown has given us an early advantage. Why I object to the word celebrating? It's not time to celebrate yet. It's a feel-good factor. Feel-good factor can actually, if you extend it too much, then it lets your guard down. And I'm worried that if the public interprets this as a victory already, they would be held to pay because people will start becoming careless. The whole battle the fulcrum is how well the people will behave post-lockdown. If the lockdown is taken, end of lockdown and gradual appearance to normal life, if we actually practice those 3 mantras, I think that we have a huge, huge benefit of that. And we may be able to blunt. Like I said, what is my biggest worry? You can take US, you can take Italy, you can take Iran. Our population is 3 to 5 times of those countries. And we must be very cautious because it will actually have a very long damaging effect on our economy, on our daily life, on unemployment. So we need to, we need to save ourselves from that as much as we want to save ourselves from the disease. So if we start taking this fact that it is flat today and we don't have to worry about it, I think that's a very false sense of security, and I would warn against that. I would love to be wrong in this instance, but I am of the view, do not panic, but take it extremely seriously. I think that's the mantra that I would say will help
And
us.
I think the government has definitely taken it very seriously. Dr. Guleria, if we talk of some of the remedies that are being talked about, there's plasma therapy. There's also talk now of polio drops being successful. So are we seeing a lot of progress being made in therapies before a vaccine is even created, and that can actually help us further save lives?
Correct. There's a lot of research going on in newer therapies for what we call, like you said, convalescent plasma, BCG vaccination,
Yes.
even polio drops. Then there are drugs which are being used, which we call repurposed drugs. These are drugs which are already available in the market but are being now used for COVID-19. These include drugs like hydroxychloroquine. There is another drug, ivermectin, which is used for parasitic infection. That is also being tried. And a lot of newer drugs are also being looked at. Similarly, there are new drugs which are being developed. One of them, of course, is a drug which was developed for Ebola. It's now being looked at as far as remdesivir is concerned. I've already mentioned about convalescent plasma. There are a large number of trials which are going on. Number of centers in India have started looking at convalescent plasma and giving it to patients. We have started it at our own center. And this is something which is not a new therapy. It's been tried for more than 100 years, because it's just taking the blood or the plasma from people who have recovered, using the antibodies in the plasma and giving it to sick patients so that they get some degree of passive immunity and are able to fight the infection. So a lot of exciting drugs and new drugs are being looked at. And I think researchers and scientists from across the globe have come together not only to rapidly develop a vaccine,
Yes.
but to rapidly come out with a treatment which will be able to tackle or cure COVID-19 as early as possible. So I think this is something which is very heartening to see that there is a collaboration at an international level and trying to really get effective drugs and vaccine as early as possible.
Absolutely. Dr. Trehan, maybe you can comment on this aspect as well, about collaboration across the world. This lockdown, I mean, under normal circumstances, would bring the worst elements out of a person if they are locked down without any activities. But social media, the connections, the internet, in this age, it has definitely eased people's concerns to